actually found that it was a lot harder than I thought. I think the worst of it is the fact that I have so many really cool memories with Mom and Dad. It was true even when we were all in the Okanagan and they were still down in Maple Ridge. We could count on them every long weekend. It was going to be. Each one of us had that visit. Everything I am, I can honestly say that I believe I owe to my parents. I think I got the best and also the worst of them. Growing up around them was never boring, and realistically we always had what we needed. But they seemed to think that we should be responsible for our own actions, and because money didn't grow on trees, if it's a want it instead of a need it, get out and earn it. Right? And that was good lessons. My mom went to work when I was in grade 2, so I learned pretty early to kind of watch out for the little kids and that meals and dishes were never going to end. I always tried to boss Cheryl around, never worked. Try as I would to boss her, she had a mind of her own and never had a problem expressing her opinions to all of us, especially Patrice and Dad. The 4 of us were defined as the big kids, Cheryl and myself, and then the little kids, Anne and Patrice. Before Mom went to work, we spent a lot of time outside. I'm not sure whether she pushed us out or whether we just enjoyed being outside, but I know we did. She had a great big wooden whistle that she'd keep out on the porch. And if you ever heard that whistle, you better move it and get home. We tried to hide it because it wasn't always convenient for us to come home when she thought it was. But as soon as Patrice learned to talk, we'd hear the little voice saying, "I'm telling." I remember when Mom got her driver's license. It was such a fun thing to be riding in a little Volkswagen Bug as we drove around and around the backyard apple tree. Back and forth as she learned to park between the buckets, and feeling really angry when Pat Volker took her out to practice because they wouldn't let me come, because I thought that I should be there always. The first road trip I recall was going to Dawson Creek to visit her mother, Grandma. We all thought it was so funny that all our clothes were packed in the trunk of the car, but that it was in the front. Mom told us that that would be a good space to store misbehaving children. She would make room if any more than one of us needed to go in there. It seemed to take forever, but I was fortunate enough to get to sit in the front, one of the small perks of being the eldest. Cheryl and Amber in the back seat. Amber usually fell asleep on the floor. I'm not sure whether Cheryl pushed her onto the floor or whether she got there herself, but what can I say? Patrice had a special place in the cubbyhole behind the back seat. She truly was the backseat driver because she usually had something to say to just about every one of us. I can recall only minimal fighting on that trip because we were all worried that riding in the trunk might be pretty dark and scary, and usually if Mom said it, it was going to happen, right? So you just we'd just walk away. She was usually the taxi driver, so if we needed to go somewhere, we would always ask her. She was really good, but Dad, on the other hand, I can remember asking him to drive me somewhere, and as usual, he told me to walk. As I really wanted to be driven, I decided to explain to him that, you know, what if somebody jumped out of the bushes and got me? And he'd just look at me and grin and go, "Who'd want ya?" So much for that plan. However, in reality, and kind of tongue-in-cheek, I think he was the instrumental one in our independence. Every once in a while, when it was raining, Mom and us kids would go and take Dad coffee while he was on his postal route. We would walk with him for a while. In reality, we would run because he power walked because he had to hurry up and get home because his soaps were starting. TV was an incredibly important part of Dad's life. My earliest of memories of Dad was him telling us to quit parading in front of the TV. I'm sure that our husbands paid the price for so much sports on TV too. As an adult, I was pretty definite that I wasn't going to have to listen to hockey 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. Needless to say, every host we've ever had a boys' club, so that could happen. It wasn't very often that Dad would spend time with us. Independence training, as I mentioned earlier. So the times that he did spend time with us were memorable. I can remember him taking me to a Canucks game in my teens. And although it was kind of nice and different to spend time with him, I have to admit I was also embarrassed. He was always a little on the vocal side with the refereeing, and some of the stuff that came out of his mouth, I honestly was mortified. Every once in a while, he would surprise us. A drive-in movie with a children's cartoon was very cool when you're around 7 years old. Very cool. That was one of the times when Mom was working an afternoon shift, and I think he wanted to just go for a drive so we'd all be quiet and go to sleep, but hey. Another time was that, I can't really remember what the event was, but I needed to go and get a dress. And, as one of the few times, he agreed to take me. I had saved up for this dress, but I didn't have quite enough. So he explained to me that if I bought the dress he liked, he'd pay the difference. He actually paid for the whole dress. As we got older, and the boys started coming around, I think he went on watchdog patrol. When we arrived home, I could see the reflection of his glasses in the window. He was looking out. If you didn't come in right away, the porch light would start getting flicked on and off. And you could always count on the exact time announcement as far as the time that you walked in, as in, it was 11:37 that you came. Pretty much all the boys were pukes, and he rarely really even spoke to them. The few times that he did, I just as soon forget. Dad was the master of sarcasm, and every once in a while I found that it will surface in me as well. I teased him a lot as an adult. It felt really good to pay him back.
Yeah.
I pretty much consistently teased him that he wasn't the guy that raised us. He was too busy now trying to get into heaven by cuddling the grandkids. He hated new things. He refused to travel, go to our special events, or even eat foods that he wasn't familiar with. He often said, "My dad wouldn't eat that. He wouldn't have done that, so I'm not doing it either." Herb and I were with Mom and Dad on Dad's first cruise. Up until the day before we left, he was trying to give away his ticket. I had asked him months previously, and some of the excuses that I got were amazing. Well, who's going to record my soaps? Well, who's going to pick up the mail? You know, all of those kind of things. So finally I said, you know, I'm booking this at this time, Dad. If you don't want to go, just say so. Well, he very angrily said, fine, it'll make your mother happy. At which point, too, I kind of had to add the little bit of sarcasm. You make my holiday miserable, you're going overboard, buddy. It was that same trip that Dad had a tantrum about going to Disneyland. But that's another story all by itself. I think the amazing thing with him is that he would put on these little performances and then not even have the good grace to be embarrassed about it later. He'd just grin. Yeah, that was me. Well, really, cruising became his life. He would no more than get home when he would start looking for the next one. He'd even missed the odd Vipers game. It was amazing. He was very proud of his elite status on Princess, like Ken mentioned. You got your laundry done. Herb and I were also fortunate to be on the last cruise with them, which was to Alaska in May of the year that Mom passed away. Mom was always there. She radiated kindness and reason. Even when we were young, she would encourage us to make our own decision, but stopped us if she could see that we hadn't thought it through. I can remember her saying, "What do you think was going to happen if?" She had a very subtle way of expressing her disappointment, and there was nothing worse than disappointing Mom. Absolutely. She had a way of just, all she ever had to say is, "Oh, Lavina," and I would crumble. It was just awful. It always worked, even into adulthood. I don't mind saying that during the time our own daughters were growing up, I heard things that she always said coming out of my mouth. I guess that she knew what she was talking about. Mom really taught us what love was about. She encouraged our getting involved and insisted that we finish what we started, and to take care of each other. She was always willing to help, keep a watchful eye on each of us. She made sure that we stayed in touch, even if it was just through her, and made the time to get to know and develop relationships with her, with our husbands, all of her grandchildren, and even her great-grandchildren. Even the greats to this day would be able to tell you what was great-grandma's favorite flower, and what was her favorite color. I was always inspired by her ability to keep communication open. Like myself, she wasn't always that great at keeping in touch with the extended family and friends, but always expressed how much she enjoyed the outside friends and family when she did get a chance to visit with them. She got to know all the in-laws of each family and went out of her way to make sure that she and Dad would come over if she knew they were visiting. She was one very busy lady. It didn't happen very often, but I can remember there was really nothing better than a cuddle with Mom. As kids, she got to know her friends, and to this day, I find it incredible that she pretty much had a good handle on what was going on, but chose not to say anything. We only found out that when adults, we'd talk about how we got away with all these cool things. And then we'd hear her say, "Yes, she knew about that." She even gave us more information about the event than we did. Consequently, it certainly made my jaw drop, that she knew. She was very special to all of us. If there was anything in the world that I wish, it would be to be half the mom that she was. I don't know what I would have done without her when the babies started to come. Mom would often stop in on her way home. The year that Julie was born was very hot, and there was a lot of crying, and it wasn't just Julie doing the crying. I tried everything to try and cool out that baby so she would be comfortable. Mom stopped by after work and said nothing, gave me a sympathetic hug, took Julie, propped her up in a high chair, plopped a down face cloth on her head. Imagine, to my surprise, when all of a sudden we had a smiling, contented baby. Go figure. Another example of this was a day I had a bunch of running around to do, and she offered to take Julie for the afternoon. I got back to Mom's to discover Julie sitting in a box, at about 5-6 months old, moving a feather from hand to hand, the teething drool, keeping the feather sticking, and she was very intent on trying to remove the feather. I'm sure that my sisters have lots of examples of this as well. As the kids grew, she made sure that she spent time with them, but also wouldn't be taken advantage of by them. Whining just didn't cut it. And if they didn't know to use the words, she would just say, "Go away." Go away till you learn. 12 Days with Christmas was a tradition that she started, and all the grandchildren loved it. She said it was fun to make Christmas last a little longer. And it was so successful, like Chris mentioned, that we had, as grandparents now, we've continued that tradition. It is fun to make Christmas last a little longer. Every couple of years when we were young, we'd go to visit Dad's family in Radville. Ken mentioned this one, and I kind of smiled because Dad always thought, if you're going somewhere, just get in the car and go. we'd get to Maple Ridge to Radville in 24 hours. No one was supposed to drink anything before we left. There were very few pee breaks. If we ever had to go, we'd say, "We had to go," and he'd go, "Just another 100 miles." I have a lot of fun memories of the time we spent with family there. In December of 2014, Dad and Mom had a terrible car accident, and Mom was very badly hurt. Between the hospital and rehab, she wasn't able to go back home until May of 2015. I was amazed and inspired to see how hard she fought to get her life back. She was always very strong, and I think that's why it caught us all so off guard when we lost her on October 24th, a bit less than 3 years later. We were devastated. So was Dad. I don't think that I realized at the time just how great the loss was to Dad. I think I got so packed up in trying to get things comfortable for everybody. His health went downhill very rapidly, and we had no option but to bring him closer to us. It was a very hard year for him. So much changed. So a year less a day, on October the 23rd of the next year, he passed away. Almost a year later, after Dad's death, I still miss them terribly. I'm comforted by the idea that they're together forever, and as Dad would always say when something was ending, well, I guess. So I hope everyone will join me in having a drink for them, for celebrating their life, because they were very special people. Thanks very much. I